one of the real problems with the K-12 403b is it falls outside of federal fiduciary oversight. So if you have a 401k and you're an employer, so you're the plan sponsor, you have to adhere to certain fiduciary standards. This is not to say that all 401k plans are perfect, but they are enormously better than the K-12 403b.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping teachers navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Shaun Morgan, a full-time teacher. That's right, I teach every day just like you, and personal financial coach. And I'm here to help every teacher, whether you are a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights, or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, or you need to understand what your 403b is to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. I'm super excited to have Dan Otter on the show today. If you do not know who Dan Otter is, you should. He is a PhD, a former elementary school teacher, professor, associate dean, author, and executive director of 403bwise.org, which is a nonprofit organization working to fix the broken K-12 403b plan. He's also been named a money hero by Money Magazine for his extraordinary efforts to improve others' financial well-being. He's the author of several personal finance books, Teach and Retire Rich, fantastic book. I love that one. Financial Literacy for the Young and Young at Heart, and the 403b Wise Guide. He co-hosts the Teach and Retire Rich podcast with CFP Scott Downhauer, who's also a great guy. Dan, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to have you on. For anyone who doesn't know what 403b Wise is, or just doesn't know about you, can you tell us about your background in education and how you got started in 403b Wise?
Absolutely. So it all started when I was an elementary school teacher in Southern California in the 90s, Shaun. That's how old I am. It was I guess the mid to lower 90s. Like I think it was 1993. I was a first year elementary school teacher. The kids had left for the day. And if you can recall what it's like to be a first year teacher, you are staying late. So I'm at my desk, desperately trying to get ready for the next day's instruction. And there's a knock at my classroom door. And I open it, and a woman looks at me and says, "Hey, do you care about your financial future?" Well, that's a pretty loaded question. And I think the answer is yes. And that's what I said. And she took it as an invitation to come into my room, and she started talking about all these investments and how she helped all the other teachers in our school. And Shaun, I had no idea what she was talking about. I had some vague idea that I had a pension and that if I taught X number of years, when I retired, I'd get a percentage of my salary. But this other investment she was talking about, I had no idea. I never heard her use the term 403b. That is something I remember. So I politely listened and I said, "Look, if I'm interested, I'll get in touch with you." And Shaun, lucky for me, I never did, because I began to learn that what she was trying to sell me were high fee annuity products, and they were going to benefit her at the expense of me. And I found out, Shaun, it wasn't just my school. It just wasn't my school district. It wasn't just my state. It was a national problem. So in 2000, I launched the website 403bwise, and we were a .com at the time. And I was still a full-time elementary school teacher. And we started connecting with other people around the country. And within a couple months, I got interviewed by US News and World Report. I like to joke it was a magazine. Do you know what that is? A lot of people don't remember what magazines were, but that was a big deal for us to get 403B Wise mentioned in a magazine. And then I used to listen to this show called Sound Money. It was an NPR affiliate show out of Minneapolis. And this is pre-podcast. time. So I had to listen whenever it aired. And I think it was like 10 a.m. on Saturdays. So I would set my schedule on Saturdays to be doing yard work while I had my radio headphones on, listening to this show. And after we got the mention in US News and World Report, I decided to email them. And I said something along the lines of, I love what you do. I've learned so much. You're always talking about the 401k. You should do something on the 403b. And oh, by the way, I run this website. Shaun, even though it was a Saturday, within 2 hours, they emailed me back and said, oh, this sounds awesome. We looked at your website. We'd love to interview you. How's next week? And I remember getting like moist fingers, nerves. Oh my God, I'm gonna be interviewed on the radio. And somehow I got through the interview, and it just led to, I wouldn't say an explosion, but a definite spike in our site traffic. And sort of one thing led to another. And here I am 20 plus years later, still doing this, but we are now a nonprofit, and I now do this full time because we have the generous support of an amazing philanthropist named Tim Ranzetta, who has his own remarkable nonprofit that I know you're familiar with, Next Gen Personal Finance. He has such a laudable goal, and that is by 2030, every kid graduating from an American high school will have taken a standalone personal finance class.
That is a fantastic story. I never get tired of hearing it. I've heard Dan tell this story multiple times, but it's
My
really
family
cool.
gets bored.
It's just so cool that you're able to notice a problem and then just full speed ahead, start trying to tackle this problem head on to the point where you've attracted the attention of someone who's supporting your website, so that way you can just freely give this information and help as many people as possible. And if you are not aware of Next Gen Personal Finance, it's just got tons of resources available to teachers and educators to teach personal finance. Multiple things that you can look at. Like I couldn't even explain to you all the things that they have, but it's a fantastic resource. Highly recommend you check that out, as well as 403bwise.org, of course. One thing in your story that really struck out to me is you talked about how this salesperson was selling a high fee annuity, and you were like, thank goodness I didn't. But like, how can a teacher know if they should have done that or not? Like, high fee annuity, what does that even mean? What is a high fee? What's an annuity? Thinking about that and other like maybe misconceptions or challenges people face when choosing a 403 retirement plan. What are your thoughts on that, and what should people be looking out for?
Such a good question, Shaun. We are simply not educating educators about their retirement options, and we're leaving it to a sales force whose incentive is to sell the products that benefit them. One of the real problems with the K-12 403b is it falls outside of federal fiduciary oversight. So if you have a 401k and you're an employer, so you're the plan sponsor, you have to adhere to certain fiduciary standards. This is not to say that all 401k plans are perfect, but they are enormously better than the K-12 403b. My wife works for a company with a 401k. She has one provider. So all she has to decide is which of the investment options does she choose. If you teach in the school district where I live in Redlands, California. Shaun, there are 42 different financial companies. So most of them have sales agents. They flood the staff lounges. They flood the email inboxes. And here's where it really gets nefarious. The school districts take a real hands-off attitude. So think about this. You're a teacher. You come into your staff lounge at lunch. You're super tired and hungry. We've all been there as teachers. And there's a person there in a suit giving away sandwiches saying, I'm a financial advisor. You would think rightly, oh, this person's endorsed by the school district. This person has been vetted, and nothing can be further from the truth. So teachers sign up. It's heartbreaking, Shaun. They think, oh, I'm doing something really good for my financial future. I have this financial advisor. I'm really adulting, I'm really taking steps to control my financial future. And some years go by, and one way or the other, maybe they hear about us, or maybe there's someone at their school district who's an educator that's in the know. They find out they've been sold very high fee products. They usually come to 403bwise, especially the 403bwise Facebook group. Shaun, yesterday we went over 15,000 members. And Shaun, the number one question, how do I get out of this financial company? So back to your question, what should teachers do? Ideally, they come to a website like ours. Again, we're a nonprofit. We sell nothing. Everything we have is for free. Our goal is two things: education. We want you to come and get wise to the workings of the 403b in a non-sales environment. And then it's advocacy. You don't have good options available. We're going to help you advocate for lower cost options. Come to 403b Wise, and we have this really cool vendor and school district search tool. You can search your individual school district. So you would search by your state, and then you would see a pop-up window with all of the school districts. Click your school district. There are over 13,000 school districts, and right now we have 5,000 in our database. We have all the large school districts. So if we have the data, what you're going to see is all of your vendors, and the good ones will have a green check, and there'll be a link to our rating system, and you can see all of the main vendors. We rate them in three simple categories. We use the traffic light system: red, yellow, green. Red, stop. If you're in your car, do not go through that intersection because it is enormously dangerous. If you're an investor, don't go with these companies. Enormously dangerous. Yellow, caution. They're okay. We describe why they're okay. And then there's the green, go. Go look at those. Now, if we don't have your vendor data, we have a prompt where we ask you to contact your benefits office and ask for your vendor list, submit it to us. We will upload it and we will grade it. You don't need us to be displaying it. If you are looking at our vendor rating tools and you have your list, you can look and see, oh, do I have a green vendor? If you don't, advocate for one. Go to your school district. What we tell people actually is, at first, build an army, get other colleagues, make them aware of the fact that you don't have a low cost option available. Squeaky wheels get the oil, right? Get the grease. So get a bunch of squeaky wheels to go to the benefits office. And Shaun, here's the thing that just always blows me away. The benefits officials are contributors too. Wouldn't they want a Vanguard, a Fidelity, an Aspire? Wouldn't they want a low cost option for their own retirement? That's something that always surprises us when we get emails from teachers. I build an army. I went to the school district. I even went to the school board, and they still won't add a lower cost option. The next step we would ask is, do you have something called a 457B? This is an additional retirement plan available to educators. It's primarily used by state employees. So if you work for a state government, firefighters, police officers, there is more fiduciary oversight. It's usually state-based fiduciary oversight. So it actually makes it a better plan than the 403b. The other reason it's better is that if you separate from service, if you leave your employer and you have a 457b, you can access that money at any age. You don't have to wait to age 55 like you do with the 403b. So we think that makes it very appealing. The other thing is states have their own 457b plans that they run, and they typically have enormous amounts of assets under management. And when you have lots of investors, it drives down the cost. And the best example is New York State Deferred Compensation 457b. More than $23 billion of assets under management. Shaun, they have an S&P 500 fund that costs 0.0875. So check your 403b vendor list. See if we have the data. If not, ask for it. Email me at dan@403bwise.org. We'll take a look at it. join the 403bwise Facebook group. But Shaun, we actually are now really advising all new teachers start with a Roth IRA. You probably don't need the tax deduction, which you can get with the 403b. The beauty of the Roth IRA is you can open it up with any company you want. You want Vanguard and your school district isn't offering Vanguard in your 403b, simply open up a Roth IRA. And maybe later when you're making more money and your district has a better choice, or even if they do have a better choice, we might argue that the Roth IRA is a better way to go. And it's ironic, right? Because we are 403bwise.org. We truly want what's best for teachers.
That was so much information that we need to unpack. It was
Sorry, that was
wonderful.
I spewed.
It was absolutely wonderful. I love how you say 403 be wise, and I love puns, so I love the be wise part of it. Right, so the 403b part is not the important part; it's the wisdom part that's really important.
Oh, I
And
love
if the
that.
403b isn't the wise thing to do, then don't do it, right? Yeah,
I like that,
it
Shaun.
shocks me how little oversight there is from districts. I cannot believe that there's no vetting process. Like in my district, I looked it up to get added to their vendor list. The vendor had to fill out a form and say, I want to be on your vendor list. Done. No checking, no back. It's just like, I want to be on your vendor list. And they're done. Vanguard's not going around, asking every little school district to be on their vendor list. But these other companies that have these high paid sales, teams are, and that's how they're getting on those lists. And, the worst company, the worst company that we all know about, they were on our list and they were emailing us on our personal email addresses, which they should not have access to. Not sure how they got those. Calling me on my personal phone number, telling me that my school district wanted me to invest. Like they literally invoked the name of my school district. I'm like, this is not okay. So I get on and I email all the teachers in my school and say, they're doing this and this is wrong. And my principal said, you're not allowed to do that. He shut me down. I'm like, I just warned everyone that this predatory company is trying to take your money. And I got told, don't tell everybody that. That's not allowed.
Shaun, that is unbelievable. And you almost feel sorry for the principal. They either are somehow being compensated by this company, and I will say the company you're thinking of and mentioning they were fined $50 million by the SEC. So my question for the principal and the benefits official at your school district is why would you allow this company to sell products to your most valuable resource, your employees?
It's just it blows my mind. But anyway, so that's the first thing. I just want to make sure people realize that these predatory practices are very, very predatory, and you need to be aware of them. And then you brought up advocacy. How how can somebody advocate? So you get your army. You just choose one vendor and you try and go, but like you're getting shut down. What can they do? Is there any other recourse if they're not getting that?
It's such a good question, and there is no single answer. Every school district is different. We hear stories where a teacher asks the benefits office to add Vanguard, and within a couple weeks, it's been added. We hear stories where teachers have gotten lots of colleagues together. They have so we have a whole advocacy section on 403B Wise. We have three main sections: education, so you can find out about all the plans, how it works. If you want to use the right kind of advisor, we're not against advisors. Just make sure they're a fiduciary. That means they have a duty to put your interest above theirs. Seems like that should be required of anyone selling financial product. It's not in this country. Um, we have a community section where you can read different teacher stories and you can access our Facebook group. But then there's the advocacy section. Shaun, we've created short little presentations that a teacher can download, customize, or use it how we've set it up. Show the principal, show the HR director, show the benefits official. So we have all these different tools. There is no rhyme or reason. The story you just told about your principal, it's kind of mind blowing, right? You and him are on the same team. It's just, it is. you have to come at it from so many different fronts. And again, I know I've mentioned our Facebook group, but Shaun, the number one question, and I'm just going to say it is, how do I get out of Equitable? That is the most asked question. And here's what's so problematic. These companies make it unbelievably easy to get into. And we didn't even talk about the surrender charges. Companies like Equitable charge surrender fees. So imagine you listen to this wonderful podcast of yours and you find out, oh no, I'm in one of these high fee companies like Equitable. Oh, but look, I have Aspire, Vanguard, Fidelity available. I'm going to go ahead and transfer. Well, you can do that, but you might get dinged 7% of your own balance because of the surrender charges these companies implement. So what we would tell teachers, if you're in this situation, in fact, we have a whole resource from our homepage called How to Get Out of a Bad 403b. Just go to our homepage, lower left, you'll see that. If you click that, it's advice for getting out of any kind of company. But at the bottom, we have a link to specifically how to get out of Equitable because again, it is the number one issue with people that come to our website. So what we would say is stop contributing. That's the first thing you should do. I liken it to if you're in a hole, stop digging, right? Put the shovel down, stop the payment, pause, look at your vendor list. If you have a good company, open an account with them, go back to your benefits office, fill out a salary reduction agreement saying, let's say it's 200 a month that was going to Equitable or a company like that, send it to the new vendor. If you don't have a good vendor, then you have to really decide what do you want to do. And a lot of times teachers already have the Roth IRA. They're already maxing it out. If that's not you, do the Roth IRA route and then advocate. Other options, Scott, Shaun, and I would say, my partner Scott Downhauer talks about this. It's actually probably cheaper to open a low cost account with Vanguard, invest in mutual funds or ETFs that are only charging 0.02%. Now, these are taxable, but you're probably better off. That's how expensive most K-12 403b products are.
Yeah, I mean, teachers aren't usually making enough money for the taxes to be that big of a deal. So that is a good point. I love how you're talking about taking other options, right? You have the 403b, but like I personally never invested in a 403b until my current school, in which my school, which is a charter school, is run by a former financial planner who chose one 403b provider that was good and said, that's what you're all getting. I love this. I love this school. I love this guy. He's fantastic. And that's when I started investing in a 403b. But before that, I had the 457, right? That's huge. I love the 457, especially for that separate from service clause. That's fantastic. And then like most insurance plans have the HSA option, which can also double as an investment option. So if you have the HSA, there's basically the same amount as you can put into an IRA there. So you have the IRA, the HSA, the 457 are all things you can invest in before you get to your 403b. And then, like you said, if your 403b is that bad, you don't even have to invest in a taxable or a tax deferred account of any kind, because investing for your future is about the money growing. It's not about the tax benefit, right? We don't want to have the tax tail wag the dog, as we say. So it's about you want to maximize your tax benefit, but not at the expense of actually growing your money long term.
That's so well said. I think we can easily get in this cycle of, oh my gosh, everything has to be maximized from a tax perspective. And I think we leave money on the table when we do that.
Yeah, amen. No, I'm looking at the other questions that we were going to talk about, and I feel like we've mentioned all of them. So I just wanted to kind of do like a recap and then see if there's anything else that you really want to share, right? So we have, what should you look out for when selecting a 403b plan provider? Well, go to 403bwise and use that, that tool. Right? You don't need to do all the work yourself. You could, go look through it. Do they have, what's the expense ratio? What are their fees? What is the, surrender charge? Yada yada. You could do all this research, or you could just go to 403bwise and they've done it for you, right? So, look for that. What are some red flags, some warning signs? Well, we've talked about surrender charges, we've talked about high fees, but if there's a red symbol on it on 403bwise, then don't use them, right? That's a pretty straightforward. Once again, the tool is there. And then we talked about what you can do if your school or district doesn't provide a good 403b option, that advocacy. You can find that on 403bwise, or start gathering your army, start saying, hey, we want a better option. And then my next question, then, I feel like we've already covered this, but I just want to see if you have anything extra to share. If someone is just starting to explore the options with 403b, what's some advice you'd give them? I mean, we know go to 403bwise, but is there something specific to look for, or something specific to be thinking about as you're starting a 403b?
Yeah, I would say, we've kind of covered that. Again, I know it's very self-promoting, but again, we are a nonprofit. We know of nowhere else where you can get this kind of information. I would say you don't have to act right now. And you might listen to this podcast and get super motivated, and I love that. And I sometimes can just jump into things where taking a breath, taking a step back, maybe it's your goal this summer, because again, I taught more than 10 years. I know that this time of year, the weather's getting nicer, kids' attentions tend to get a little more diverted. This is a hard time of the year. It's also a fun time because you see sort of the end and you've probably built this great bond with your students, but maybe you just take a deep breath and you wait until the summer. I would also say if you're someone who's learning about this 403b now and you want others to know about the problems, we had a short podcast series produced by professionals. So it's not our regular Teach and Retire Rich podcast where it's me and Scott just talking. This is a very highly produced, uh, excellent 30-minute episodes, 5 episodes. It's called Learned by Being Burned, Teachers in the K-12 403b, and it's the stories of teachers from all over the country being burned and then getting wise and then driving change. And you can access this right from our homepage. Oh, the other thing I would say is right now across the country, school districts are struggling to hire and retain teachers. If you are a attendant, if you are an administrator, folks, use the 403b to recruit other teachers. Shaun, I bet your school district can use your excellent 403b as a way to lure new teachers or maybe take them from a school district that maybe doesn't have very good options. Finally, my joke is put 403bwise.org out of business. Let's fix the K-12 403b. We shouldn't even exist. We only exist because the federal government has refused to address this issue. If by some chance there's a congressperson listening, introduce legislation to simply make ERISA include the K-12 403b. Problem fixed.
That is awesome. I actually want to talk about that here in a second. But I really I cannot stress enough. First of all, when I'm saying go to 403bwise.org, I'm not being paid by Dan to promote him. I asked Dan to come on the show. I love 403bwise.org personally. I think it's great. Like, I am promoting it of my own free will, as much as I go around telling everyone how much I love Costco just because I love it. Okay. It's one of those things that when you love a product, it doesn't matter if they're like paying you or not, you are going to tell people about it. Okay. So that's it. And then, on top of that, Learned by Being Burned was amazing. Okay. I absolutely I loved that podcast. It's just a short series, so it's not like, oh, another podcast to add to my list of podcasts I listen to every week. You can get through it and then it's done, but it's very well done, very well produced. And for those that have been listening, long term, our very first guest, Barb Biesel, she's the one that narrated it. Fantastic. She's wonderful at a job on that show. So once again, highly recommend listening to that podcast. It's fantastic. I want to turn real quick to this idea of, national change. Is there anything that 403bwise is doing or can do, or that teachers can do to try and push for a national change?
Yeah, such a good question. And first of all, Shaun, thank you for the kind words. We are nothing without teachers like you. We are a community. I might sort of be the face of it, and that is wonderful, but I couldn't have any success with all of the educators that come to our website, contribute by uploading their vendor data, by making the 403bwise Facebook group so active. So thank you to you and to all the teachers that who have participated in any of our content. So interesting what we've been up to. Just the past couple weeks, we have been addressing legislators in Illinois. A former teacher who was sold a high cost product by a high cost company still remembers being burned. And now that she is a legislator, she has introduced legislation, Shaun, that would require all school districts in Illinois to go single vendor. Now, it's going to probably be hard to get that through. You already have the National Tax Sheltered Annuity Association or Tax Deferred uh, Savings Association, whatever they change their name to. This is a lobbying group that puts out just, I would say, suspect research saying that we should keep multi-vendor plans when in fact, if you work for them, guess what, Shaun? You have one vendor. I mean, the hypocrisy is outrageous. But the fact that a legislator is taking this on in Illinois, I hope it encourages other legislators in other states to do this. We are really trying to also create more content to spread the word that, hey, folks, the 403b, the governmental K-12 403b, is not subject to ERISA. We're going to be working on a video to get out there. So we are pushing that too. But if anyone on this podcast knows a legislator, whether it's state-based or federal-based, get in their ear about this. I have never met anyone, Shaun, who I told about the problems with the K-12 403b who said, that's not a problem. Everyone is outraged by it. Let's fix it. Put us out of business.
There you have it. Dan begging to be retired from his job.
I'm trying to teach and retire rich, like my book and my podcast. And of course, rich doesn't mean mega wealthy. It means intrinsically rich because you've done a really rewarding career.
Yeah. Once again, I also want to, plug Dan's book, Teach and Retire Rich. It's not like, a tome, right? It's a short, very easy to understand book. I really loved reading it. And that's where I finally understood what an annuity was, right? I mean, I had tried to understand it before, but Dan just laid it out. It was very easy to understand. And I realized, like, why would I want to get an annuity when my pension's an annuity already? You just be doubling up on annuities. So like you don't need to have both. You can then invest your own money in other investments to grow, to have that icing on top of your pension cake. So it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And I will say on our book, we are very close to getting a new edition out. So we are not taking orders right now. I would say stay tuned. We do something called a Be Wise Alert. It's a free newsletter we put out once a week. You can sign up for that at the bottom of 403bwise.org, and that will be the first group we alert to when the new edition comes out. So if you go to Teach and Retire Rich, and I think it's .com, you will see it'll say currently sold out, but the book will be coming soon. And I really appreciate those kind words you said about that, Shaun. And again, I am just so impressed with all that you're doing, Shaun. You are a teacher. I know how tiring that is. And the fact that you would devote so much of your time to helping other educators. Again, this is why I love teachers. Teachers are amazing people. They deserve to be treated better with their retirement plans.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate that. So I got two more questions for you just to wrap this up. The questions I ask all my guests. What is your number one tip for teachers to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life?
Ah, so good. You can do two things. The money can control you, or you can control the money. You're gonna have to do a little bit of education. But I heard JL Collins was on Tim Ranzetta's NGPF podcast, and he said three things. Let's see if I can remember them. Number one, don't get in debt. Okay. And if you are in debt, get out of debt. Number two, invest in low cost products. And I'm kind of forgetting what 3 is, but I think it was don't screw up number 2. Don't follow the market on a day-to-day basis. I think I might have 3 wrong, but I think 3 sounds pretty good. So let's go with those 3.
Rule number 3, refer to rules number 1 and 2.
There you go. Don't react to the market.
Yeah.
Pick low cost investments and forget about it. If you look at the daily fluctuations of the market, you know this, Shaun, you're going to make unwise decisions. We are not psychologically equipped to really make wise decisions. So I like to take it out of my hands, pick low cost investments and forget about it. I believe in historical data. All of these crises that have happened, the market still eventually went up. I love what Warren Buffett said. In the short term, I'm a pessimist. In the long term, I'm an optimist. Focus on long term, 20, 30-year periods.
I love that. And one of my favorite statistics of all time is that the people who performed best in their Vanguard account are dead because they never touched their money. It's just
Yes.
but if you don't touch your money, it just keeps growing. But when you touch it, you have all these transaction costs, and you win, you lose, and then it moves around, and it doesn't work as well.
I'm going to try another, see if I'm almost 60 years old, so my memory is fading. But you know that expression, don't just stand there, do something. John Bogle says with the market, don't just do something, stand there. Don't don't do a thing. Just leave it. It'll be fine long term.
Amen. I love that. Okay, last question for you. How can teachers get in contact with you?
Oh, such a good question. So a couple ways. Hello at 403bwise.org. We get those. My direct email is dan at 403bwise.org. Every month, except for maybe a couple, we do a free office hours. So for 1 hour, we just answer questions. And I always say this jokingly, but it's really not a joke. It's mostly my partner, Scott Downhauer, who is a fiduciary advisor, because he has such the deep knowledge on the workings of so many different financial plans, instruments, etc. So join us on these. They're Zoom calls, they're very informal. And we love meeting teachers that way and helping them as best we can in that 1 hour.
And do you get the link to that just straight on the 403?
Oh, I should say that. Yeah, from our homepage under events, you'll see it right at the top. You can sign up, and we generally get anywhere from like 10 to 30. We don't heavily promote it because we've noticed if we get more than 20 people, 60 minutes is not enough time. And what's really cool, we don't mind if somebody jumps on, asks a question, and leave. But I don't know if it's because teachers are so polite. Most people just stick around and listen, but it's also a way to learn. So we hope to see your audience at one of these events.
All right. That sounds great. I'm excited for everyone to go check out all the resources at 403bwise.org. Just the number of things that you have provided that can help teachers is absolutely astounding. And I'm just happy to help get the word out that the 403b needs to be changed.
Wise words, Shaun. And again, thank you for your effort in this mission.
You're welcome. And thank you for coming on the show. If you'd like to come on the podcast for coaching, to share an expert opinion, or just to talk about a topic you think is relevant, I'd love to talk to you. Just fill out the form at teachermoneyshow.com/guest. I look forward to talking with you.